Well, I'm working on an early outing talking machine company, portable phonograph. Probably made around 1921. This was a local phonograph, only made about 25 miles from here. Now, outing was just a name used for marketing purposes. This was built by a furniture manufacturer whose name escapes me at the moment. They made the case, but all the hard parts, the metal parts, they were made by Heineman, as was common with the so-called off-brands during this time period. I mean, it's a nice case, very well made, beautiful oak, and in really nice condition. You can see we got some paint splatters I'm gonna have to deal with. It's not really that bad. There's a pencil stuck down in there, someone left. And there's outing, talking machine company, Mt Kisco, New York. And you see how they made the horn. And that's where they store the tonearm. The tonearm is pot metal, and amazingly, this one is in excellent condition. There's no cracks, nothing missing. It did, however, have a replacement reproducer. Fairly basic model, 1918 date on there, but that's patent date. It's not when it was made. Probably replaced sometime in the mid-20s. Maybe they broke the original. I'm going to rebuild it and put it back in there. It seems probably works just fine, and is no better or worse than what was originally on this machine. The Heineman motor, fairly basic. They made motors in more than one. I mean, they would make a motor any way you wanted. But this is your basic two-spring, two small little springs there. And we noticed a few little things on this motor. Now, where is it here? Ah, have a look at that spring on there. That is a repair. Notice the arch in that spring that is not present in the other two on the governor. That's not good. There's going to be a little bit of a vibration there. Probably worked, but we're going to deal with that. See the worm screw we have on there? Old style. Now, these motors are loaded with all kinds of spacers and washers like we see there and here. Now, that's where the spring sits, right in there. Now, this little washer right here was just stuck there. You can see where it was stuck right there in the grease, where it apparently has been since 1921, or the last time this machine was serviced. I see no signs this motor's ever been apart. You can see the built-up layers of nasty black graphite grease on there, dead bugs, and built-up fuzz and all kinds of stuff that gets in these machines over the years that I'm going to have to deal with. Now, the shaft does not have a fiber gear. When I saw that for a second there, I said, is that a fiber gear? But it's just grease on it. That's actually a very nice heavy-duty brass gear on there. Don't expect any problems there. There are no ball bearings on the ends of these shafts, which go right in here. No ball bearings. Now, that kind of surprised me. I thought maybe at first they were missing, but I can see there was no room for them ever to be there, so they never had any. I don't do a lot of work with Heineman motors, but most of my work is Victrola, as I prefer. But every now and then I take one of these apart. I couldn't resist a local machine in that nice a condition. I have a lot of outings. Most of them are mahogany, and usually they look like they've been dragged behind a truck. This one, though, is in amazingly good shape, and it's in oak, which I actually prefer. Look at that nice, greasy buildup on there. Protected everything for years. That's all got to be cleaned and relubricated. All the gears are in good condition. I see no signs of any real wear on there. The springs are not broken, and the motor was actually turning before I took it apart. But it needs full service. Everything's got to be cleaned and scrubbed and adjusted. And you can see this is wandering back and forth. You don't want that. The rubber washers that were spacing the motor inside off the motorboard, so the crank was at the right position when you stuck it in there, are petrified and flattened and are going to have to be replaced. I have a source of rubber washers. I'll get some in there and space it properly. The felt washers, they're fine, but the rubber, that definitely has to go. Everything else looks good. The friction pad there is cotton, and yeah, it's some kind of cotton material. I'm not sure what that is, but it's in good shape, so we'll leave that alone. Let me get my glove on here to handle this, otherwise the camera will be covered with grease. And you can see, typical motor. I have probably 10 different varieties of these things. Always good to have parts. And the crank gear there looks pretty good. It's not badly worn. It'll hold. Nothing to repair there. Overall, this machine is in good condition. Now, where is the motor board? Ah, here we go. This is the motor board. Actually says patent pending on it, which I don't recall from some of my other outings. Maybe this is a very, very early one. It still has the covers on the needle trays, which is surprising, including the hard-to-find one with the hole in it. That is the needle drop. That's for the spent needles. These are your good needles. You put the spent ones through the hole there and collect them in there so they're not floating around all over the place. And there's typical attachments on there. And the horn, I'm sorry, the tone arm attaches in that corner. And it mounts on that. That's what belongs in there. That's what the tone arm pivots on. This is not the machine you want to leave the tone arm in place and try to close the lid. You're not going to get too far doing that. And here we go. Is this good look at the spring can. This is, you'll find, when I say off-brand, I mean any machine that's not from the big manufacturers. Victor being the biggest. Edison, definitely right up there. Sonora, Columbia, before they became part of HMV, or were taken over by EMI rather. And who else? So that's pretty much it. Everybody else would manufacture maybe a part of a phonograph, or none of it actually, and just source everything out to an outside company and just assemble it, or just put their name on it. Like RCA did in the years after they took over Victor, when it became RCA Victor after 1932. They just started buying other people's machines and sticking their names on them, so you can find anything with an RCA name on it. My next video will probably be about a Swiss machine I picked up that does say RCA on it. They would source the motors, especially hard stuff. Sometimes Heineman, sometimes they got them from the Swiss, which was Paillard, or they tell me I'm not pronouncing that right. Whatever, you understand what I mean. Swiss, maybe Thorentz or something like that. Victor did not source motors out, neither did Edison. They made their own in-house, and they did not sell them to other manufacturers. They did some patent sharing, Victor did, with HMV, but they did not sell motors to, you know, the so-called off-brands, which were names you don't really recognize today. You know, like the Camp Phone, or the Outing, you know, stuff like that, that were just kind of skirting the patents of Victor and the other big manufacturers, or they were outright licensing them and making their own phonographs, because in the 1920s, phonographs that were portable like this, the market exploded after 1921, and all of a sudden everybody was in the business of making a portable phonograph of some kind or other. Not all of them of the quality of Victor with its Victor Victrola 50 and then later to 35. Not all of them were big, heavy, and clunky like this one. It is fairly heavy and nicely made. I mean, this looks too nice, really, to take outside and bang around in the field on a picnic. But that's exactly what it was intended for. But you can see, it's figured you get a good look at the motor before it's been cleaned and taken care of. That's the top plate right there with its nice grease. There's all the little bits and pieces. There's your screws, your motorboard screws, the plate screws, everything holding it together. Really very simple. There's not a great deal of parts here like you'd find in an internal combustion engine or anything like that. Very simple designs made to just spin that turntable at a certain speed, governed by the governor right there, powered by the spring. And let's see, what haven't I showed? This one, he actually even still has the handle on it, which is really surprising. That's usually the very first thing that gets torn off, is that handle. Everybody tries to lift with it, and of course they snap it off, and that's the end of it. That's your horn door there. This just stores there, obviously. That's the tone arm, so it wouldn't be there when you're playing it. And oh, look at that nice big dust bunny in there. That hasn't been played in a long, long time. And in case anybody was wondering, this was an eBay find. And I'm not going to tell you how much I paid for it, because I might end up selling it one day. But it wasn't a bad deal. And there you go. The Outing Talking Machine. Mt Kisco, New York, 1921. The motor.